15 years ago, Unicorn darts ruled the sport. They created champions: Phil Taylor, Adrian Lewis, James Wade, all throwing Unicorn. Their boards were on every PDC stage, their logo a badge of honor. But fast forward to today, and it's gone. The legacy, the dominance, vanished. This is the brutal, messy, and painfully avoidable failure of Unicorn darts. And the most shocking part? They might have seen it coming. Back in the late 2000s, Unicorn's player roster looked like a Hall of Fame lineup. Unicorn shaped the game, and they didn't stop at players. They also had icons behind the scenes. Legendary referee Russ Bray was on their books. So was Sid Waddell, the voice of darts himself. But Unicorn's power wasn't just in personalities, it was in product. Their Eclipse Pro dartboard was the official PDC board, used in every televised tournament since 1997. For more than 2 decades, the biggest moments in darts history were played on a Unicorn board, and their logo, front and center on every stage. By the spring of 2011, Unicorn had reached the peak of its dominance. They had just signed Gary Anderson, the Scottish thrower who'd quickly go on to win the Premier League. That signing gave them an unthinkable edge. Unicorn now had 7 of the world's top 8 players on their books. That kind of market control was unheard of. No brand in darts had ever been that dominant. And frankly, it looked like nobody was going to catch them. But Unicorn didn't realize it. This was the top of the mountain, and everything from here on out was downhill. In early 2011, Adrian Lewis was the sport's next big thing. He had just claimed his first world title, lifting the trophy in front of a packed crowd at Alexandra Palace.
For the world title, the 25-year-old Stogie, half an inch right. Half an inch right, and Adrian Lewis is dream.
He was young, fearless, and already being touted as the natural successor to Phil Taylor. And crucially, he was doing it all with Unicorn equipment. He had been with the company since the early days of his career, and they had marketed him as the future of darts, their future. So when he announced, just 10 months later, that he was leaving Unicorn to join Target Darts, it shocked the industry. Lewis didn't mince words. Target make the best darts in the business. That one sentence said everything. He buried Unicorn's reputation with a single quote. To make matters worse, Lewis then went on to defend his world title at the start of 2012. Just 3 months after switching brands, he won his second world championship, this time throwing Target darts. For Unicorn, it was the ultimate insult. Their hand-picked future star had walked away and immediately proved he didn't need them. The switch gave Target the perfect launchpad. Overnight, the upstart brand had a 2-time world champion endorsing their products. And Unicorn, they had their first crack in the armor. This was no minor defection. This was a betrayal from a player they helped build. If Adrian Lewis's departure hurt, Phil Taylor's exit was a full-blown disaster. By 2014, Taylor had been with Unicorn for nearly 2 decades. He was the brand. 16 world championships, countless majors, every title, every record, every iconic match, all with a Unicorn dart in his hand. So when rumors began swirling that he might leave, fans refused to believe it. Surely not the power, surely not after everything they'd achieved together. But then it happened. In January of 2014, Target Darts announced the signing of Phil Taylor on a 5-year deal reportedly worth £3 million. At the time, it was the richest contract ever signed in darts. And with that, Unicorn had lost the biggest name in the history of the sport. The impact was nuclear, but the story didn't end there. Even after Taylor left, Unicorn continued selling the Power branded darts. They launched a new range called the Evolution of the Power, still using his name and likeness to sell products. Taylor didn't take it lightly. He reportedly sued Unicorn for £100,000, arguing that they had no right to profit off his nickname after the split. It was a public, bitter fallout, one that revealed just how badly things had broken down behind the scenes. Unicorn had not only lost their legend, they had soured the relationship to the point of legal action. It was the moment many fans realized this wasn't just a dip in form. Something was fundamentally wrong at Unicorn Darts, and worse, other players were watching. Once Phil Taylor left, the floodgates opened. Suddenly, the invincible empire began to crumble, not with a crash, but with a series of slow, painful exits. The next to go, Raymond van Barneveld, the 5-time world champion and one of Europe's biggest darts icons. He had signed with Unicorn in 2009 on a 6-figure deal. By 2017, he followed Taylor to Target Darts. His statement? Target Darts feel amazing, look fantastic, and come in great packaging. Another high-profile name, another public endorsement of a rival brand. Then came Dimitri Vandenberg, who had been with Unicorn since his teenage years in 2014. He won the match play in 2020, then followed it up with back-to-back World Series wins in 2022. Unicorn had helped him rise through the ranks, and just months after those wins, he left. Same story with Chris Dobie, who joined in 2016, made the Premier League in 2023 and left that same year. And then there was Joe Cullen. He'd been with Unicorn since 2008, a solid, loyal pro. He finally walked away in 2020 after 12 years. The list kept growing. Kim Huybrechts, Devin Peterson, John Part, all gone. Each departure chipped away at Unicorn's identity. Each one made the next easier. But the most brutal blow of all came in 2023, when Michael Smith, who had just become world champion and world #1, left Unicorn immediately after winning the title.
This it. He was born to be a world champion.
He had been with them for 10 years. He won every major of his career with their darts. And just weeks after reaching the pinnacle of the sport, he was gone. Even more damning, Smith had signed the deal with Shot Darts, a much smaller company, months before his World Championship win. He didn't even wait to see if Unicorn would match the offer. That's how little faith he had left. This wasn't just a talent drain, it was a collapse of trust. Players weren't leaving for money, they were leaving because they believed Unicorn couldn't take them further. That's a reputation you can't rebuild overnight, and Unicorn never truly did. Losing players was bad, but Unicorn's next problem came from a place even more dangerous: their own products, specifically the boards. The Unicorn Eclipse Pro had once been the gold standard. It had hung on PDC stages for over 25 years, from the late 90s through to the early 2020s. But as the years rolled on, that legacy started to erode. Fans began to notice more bounce outs, darts not sticking, matches interrupted, rhythm destroyed. Then the professionals started speaking out. During a televised event in 2019, Michael Smith, still under contract with Unicorn at the time, took to Twitter with a brutal public call-out. Sort the boards out, these bounce-outs are ridiculous. This wasn't a fan complaint on a forum, this was one of the top players in the world actively trashing his sponsor in front of the world, and he wasn't alone. Simon Whitlock, known for using aggressive dart points, said he experienced far less damage and fewer issues on Winmau boards. Even the legendary Eric Bristow had voiced frustration over the quality decline. The message was clear. Unicorn's boards, once respected, were now a liability. Clips began circulating on social media, slow motion footage of perfect throws hitting the wire and falling out. Commentators were voicing frustration. Fans started calling it the Unibounce. And slowly but surely, the narrative shifted. Unicorn wasn't just the brand losing players, they were the brand ruining matches. The final nail came in 2022, when the PDC officially ended their decades-long partnership. For the first time since the 1990s, Unicorn boards would no longer be used in PDC majors.
And then come round to contract renewal. There's obviously a commercial angle to this, but the reality is that Unicorn, as a board, took the conscious decision not to proceed.
There was no public spat, no dramatic exit, just a quiet, awkward parting of ways. After a quarter century of dominance, the Unicorn Eclipse Pro had been pulled from center stage, and the silence spoke volumes. When the partnership between Unicorn and the PDC ended, many fans expected a statement, something bold, something that showed the company still had ambition. What they got instead was a quiet repositioning. In their official release, Unicorn announced that they were shifting focus, not toward new tech, not toward reclaiming the pro scene, but toward the amateur game. They launched a campaign called For Every Player, emphasizing social darts, accessibility, and growing the game at grassroots level. They cited a YouGov study that claimed most darts players were more interested in playing at home or at the pub than watching on TV. It sounded noble on the surface, helping the everyday player, making darts for the people, but to longtime fans, it felt like a smokescreen. This wasn't a pivot, it was a retreat, and the timing was too convenient. Unicorn didn't announce this when they were on top. They announced it after losing their biggest names, getting blasted for their boards, and quietly dropping off the PDC radar. And that's what made it hard to believe. If this was a bold new direction, why wait until after the entire roster had vanished? Why let the brand crumble on the biggest stages, only to pivot when nothing was left? The truth? They didn't choose to walk away, they were pushed out. And while the amateur campaign sounded positive, it was also vague. What did accessibility mean? Cheaper boards, simplified equipment, lower manufacturing costs. Even now, many fans remain unsure of what the strategy is, if there even is one. And more importantly, there's one thing the amateur market can't give Unikrn: prestige. You can't rebuild a legendary brand by selling starter sets, not when your competitors are making deals with world champions and flooding the televised majors. For Unikrn, this wasn't just a change in direction, it was the public confirmation of something everyone already suspected. The giant had fallen, and it wasn't getting back up. So where does Unikrn stand today? The short answer: nowhere near where they used to be. As of now, not a single Unikrn-sponsored player is ranked in the PDC's top 15. Their highest placed names: James Wade sitting at number 16 and Ross Smith at number 17. That's it. 2 players, both just outside the top tier. In a sport where visibility is everything, Unikrn has all but disappeared from the spotlight. Their last true marquee name is Gary Anderson, and while his legacy is undeniable, his best years are behind him. He's still dangerous on his day, but he's no longer the weekly threat he once was. Their dartboards, no longer used in televised events, no longer on the big stage, no longer considered the gold standard. Their rivals, meanwhile, are thriving. Target darts, once a hungry newcomer, now dominate the pro scene. Winmau boards hang on every major PDC stage. Shot darts, once a niche manufacturer from New Zealand, just signed the current world champion. Unikrn, the brand that once defined darts, is now being outpaced, outplayed, and outbranded. And even among casual players, the tide is turning. Online reviews often rank Unikrn products lower than their competitors. Criticism ranges from build quality to pricing to lack of innovation. What was once considered premium is now often described as outdated. The most painful part? It didn't have to be this way. Unikrn had the players, they had the hardware, they had the stage, but they lost the plot. They failed to evolve, they clung to their legacy while ignoring their future. And by the time they tried to pivot, it was already too late. The truth is, comeback stories are rare in darts equipment. Once you lose the pros, once you lose the stage, once you lose the trust, it's near impossible to claw your way back. Can Unikrn rebuild? Technically, yes. They still have name recognition, they still have distribution, and Gary Anderson still throws their darts. But here's the real question: do they want to come back? Because everything they've said and done over the past few years suggests they don't. They've leaned into amateur markets, they've abandoned pro sponsorships, they've stayed silent in moments where bold action was needed. And while making darts more accessible sounds like a worthy goal, it's not enough to revive a legacy. Unikrn didn't fall because of one bad decision. They fell because of 1,000 tiny ones, made slowly, quietly, and without vision. And now, a brand that once shaped champions is just another name on the shelf. The catastrophic failure of Unikrn darts wasn't a one-day collapse. It was a slow-motion tragedy, and everyone saw it coming. Now, while Unikrn was collapsing behind the scenes, another institution in darts was imploding right out in the open. The British Darts Organisation wasn't just a rival, it was the foundation of the sport. And its downfall, way louder, way messier, and even more heartbreaking. Click here to watch our deep dive into how the BDO destroyed itself from the inside, through scandal, greed, and mismanagement. You won't believe how far it fell, and how fast.